There is a dangerous kind of fear that doesn't scream. It whispers. It tells you to wait. It tells you to be careful. It tells you that you're being responsible. And sometimes it even convinces you that the dream you have isn't really your dream anymore. But what if the life you're calling safe is actually the life you're slowly regretting? This is the story of a woman named Elena. And Elena had spent most of her life being afraid of making the wrong choice. She was 31 years old and lived in a quiet coastal town in Maine. Every morning, before the sun came up, Elena would walk down to the harbor. She loved the ocean. She loved the smell of salt in the air, the sound of the boats moving against the water, and the way the horizon seemed to stretch forever. But there was one thing she loved even more: photography. Elena had carried a camera since she was 17. She photographed everything: old fishermen sitting on wooden benches, children running along the beach, storm clouds rolling over the ocean, sunsets that lasted only a few minutes. She had a way of capturing ordinary moments and making them feel important. People constantly told her, "You should do this professionally." And Elena would smile. Maybe someday. But someday had become her favorite hiding place, because Elena had once dreamed of becoming a professional photographer. She wanted to travel across America. She wanted to photograph people, places, and stories. She wanted to build a life around something she genuinely loved. But then fear entered the picture. What if she couldn't make enough money? What if nobody hired her? What if she failed? What if she left her comfortable life and discovered that her dream wasn't as beautiful as she imagined? So Elena did what many people do when they're afraid. She chose the option that felt safest. She became a bank employee. The job paid well. Her apartment was comfortable. Her bills were always paid. She had health insurance. She had savings. From the outside, Elena was doing everything right. But every Saturday morning, she still woke up before sunrise, picked up her camera, and walked toward the ocean. One morning, something unusual happened. Elena was photographing an old fishing boat when an elderly man approached her. He was carrying a small wooden box. He stopped beside her and watched her take pictures. "You've been photographing that boat for 20 minutes, he said. Elena smiled. "I like the way the light hits it." The man looked at the boat. Then he looked at her. "You know," he said, "that boat used to belong to my brother." Elena lowered her camera. The man's name was Walter. He told her that his brother had spent his entire life on the ocean, fishing, traveling, taking risks. Walter, however, had chosen a different path. He had worked in the same factory for 42 years. Elena asked him if he had enjoyed it. Walter smiled. "It paid the bills." Then he looked toward the ocean. "But that's not what you asked me." Elena didn't know what to say. Walter sat down on the edge of the dock. After a moment, he said, "My brother died 3 years ago." "I'm sorry." Walter nodded. "He always told me, you're going to regret playing it safe forever." Elena looked at him. "Did you?" Walter laughed softly. "I thought I had plenty of time to prove him wrong." He opened the wooden box he was carrying. Inside was an old photograph. It showed 2 young men standing beside a fishing boat. Walter pointed to his brother. "He's the one on the left." Then he looked at the photograph for a long moment. "I spent 42 years protecting myself from failure." He closed the box. "And eventually, I realized I had also protected myself from the life I wanted." Those words stayed with Elena. That night, she couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about the conversation. She thought about her camera, her photographs, her dreams. And then she thought about her life 5 years from now. She imagined herself still working at the bank. Same apartment, same routine, same paycheck, same Saturday walks, same camera sitting in a drawer. Nothing terrible would have happened. And somehow, that was what scared her the most. Because Elena realized something. She wasn't afraid that her dream would fail. She was afraid that it might succeed. Because if it succeeded, she'd have to admit that she had spent years standing in her own way. The next morning, Elena made a decision. She wasn't going to quit her job immediately. She wasn't going to throw away her savings. She wasn't going to make some reckless, dramatic decision. Instead, she gave herself 1 year. 1 year to find out what she was capable of. Every weekend, she photographed weddings. Every evening, she edited pictures. She created a small website. She contacted local businesses. She entered photography competitions. She posted her work. And every time fear told her, "This isn't going to work," she answered, "Maybe, but I'm going to find out." That became her new philosophy. She stopped asking, "What if I fail?" and started asking, "What will I learn if I try?" That single question changed everything. Some clients rejected her. Some people criticized her work. Some months, she barely made any money from photography. And there were nights when Elena sat on the floor of her apartment surrounded by photographs and wondered if Walter had been wrong. Maybe she really was making a mistake. Maybe the safe life had been the smarter choice. Then, 11 months into her experiment, Elena received an email. It was from a national travel magazine. An editor had discovered one of her photographs online. They wanted to hire her for a project. Not in Maine, not even in New England. They wanted her to travel across the country and photograph small towns that were disappearing. Elena read the email 3 times. Then she started crying. Not because she had finally made it, but because she suddenly understood something. The opportunity had not appeared because she stopped being afraid. It appeared because she stopped allowing fear to make her decisions. A year earlier, she would have ignored the email. She would have told herself she wasn't experienced enough. She would have found 10 reasons why someone else deserved the opportunity more. But this time, she replied with 2 words. "I'm interested." And that was the beginning of a completely different life. Years later, Elena returned to the same harbor. She was older, more confident, and still carried the same camera. She found Walter sitting on the dock. She showed him a magazine. Her photograph was on the cover. Walter smiled. "I knew you'd do it." Elena laughed. "No, you didn't." Walter shook his head. "No." He looked toward the ocean. "I just knew you needed to believe you could." Elena sat beside him. For a while, neither of them spoke. Then Walter said, "Most people think courage means being fearless." Elena looked at him. "It doesn't?" "No," he said. "Courage is knowing exactly what you're afraid of and deciding it doesn't get to choose your future. Think about your own life. Maybe you're not afraid of starting a photography career. Maybe your fear looks completely different. Maybe you're afraid to leave a relationship that no longer feels right. Maybe you're afraid to go back to school. Maybe you're afraid to apply for a position because you don't think you're qualified. Maybe you're afraid to move to a new city. Maybe you're afraid to tell someone how you really feel. Maybe you're afraid to start something because people around you might laugh. And maybe you've convinced yourself that you're simply being realistic. But ask yourself something. If fear wasn't part of the equation, What decision would you make? Not the reckless decision, not the impulsive decision, the honest one. Because there is a difference between making a wise decision and making a fearful decision. Wisdom asks, what is the right thing to do? Fear asks, what choice guarantees that nothing goes wrong? And here's the problem. The choice doesn't exist. You cannot build a meaningful life while demanding a guarantee that you will never fail. Every meaningful decision comes with uncertainty. Every dream comes with risk. Every new chapter requires you to leave something familiar behind. And sometimes the greatest risk isn't taking the wrong path. It's staying on the wrong path because you're too afraid to turn around. So don't wait until you're fearless. You probably never will be. Take the step while your hands are shaking. Make the call while your voice is nervous. Apply even if you don't feel completely qualified. Start even if nobody believes in you yet. You don't need to know exactly where the road ends. You only need enough courage to take the next step. Because one day you'll look back at this version of yourself, and you'll have to live with one of two things: the memory of trying, or the question of what could have happened if you had. Don't let fear choose for you. Let it speak. Let it warn you. Let it remind you to prepare. But when the final decision comes, you should be the one holding the pen. Because your life is too valuable to be designed entirely around what you're afraid might happen. And sometimes the door you're terrified to walk through is the door you've been waiting your entire life to find.